Hi, I'm Taylor and I hiked the TCT this summer, and as we were preparing to go, I could not find anything on like logistics. I saw a lot of like highlight reels, but not a lot of like things that would actually help us get there. Helpful tips and tricks and I don't know, all the nuts and bolts of that kind of thing. So that's the goal for this. To start, we flew to West Yellowstone and spent a day and a half in Yellowstone National Park before heading to Grand Teton National Park. So we flew into West Yellowstone Airport, super small, super cute, but if you are flying, a couple things to keep in mind: you can't fly with all your gear. So certain things like bear spray, cooking fuel, those are not allowed at all. You can't check them and you cannot carry them on. Certain things do have to be checked, like if you're bringing any kind of weapons, knives, guns, anything like that. Tent poles and stakes also have to go in there. Trekking poles, I was looking on the TSA website and it says that like sometimes trekking poles can be carried on, but why risk it, honestly? Things like peanut butter, any like large foods that aren't completely solid will have to be checked. Yeah, small lighters, just like light your cook stove, those can go in your carry-on bag. Just those little like disposable cigarette lighters, those are perfectly fine. But other things, yeah, will need to go in your check bag. And talking about bear spray and cooking fuel, since you can't bring it, it's like a little bit, just wondering where we were gonna find it. But within West Yellowstone, there were a ton of like little general stores where we could buy that stuff, and it was just as expensive as it would be here, so it wasn't like any more. And then also, if you're not flying into West Yellowstone, there's a lot of little general stores that are next to the visitor centers, so you can go there. They're in all the parks, so got you covered there. And then the next thing, so permits. We got to the Coulter Bay Visitor Center at a little bit before 7 a.m. and it opened at 9 because I'd called before, and that's when like the rangers told us to get there, just like make sure, or I guess to have the best chance of getting permits. And we were the first people in line. No one else came until like 7:45 probably. And then on the window they had a little sheet that said what campsites were full for that night, so we could kind of plan before the ranger got there. We did have to rearrange our plan a little bit to fit what they had available, but it still worked in the route that we wanted, so that was great. I was really worried about it, but it worked out well for us. Permits are $35 for a walk-in, but the day that we went, the system was down, so they were free for us. And before we were going, we were like, how important are permits? Like, are we really gonna get stopped? Like, are there really people out there, like rangers on the top of a ridge line checking? But they give you a piece of paper that is your permit, and you're supposed to attach it to your bag during the day and then attach it to the outside of your tent at night. We were never stopped by any rangers, never saw any, but a lot of the people that we ended up hiking with, they were stopped by them and asked for their permits, so it's definitely necessary, definitely have them. It wasn't too much of a hassle for us. I mean, yeah, we had to get up early, but we were able to get the same day permits. That was another thing I was really confused on the website, because I think it's like just confusing language. It says like no earlier than one day before your trip or something like that. Basically, that means that you can get same day permits, or for the next day. That's it. No other days. So if you're trying to leave on Monday, you can either show up on Sunday or on Monday to get your permits for Monday. Feel like they could make it more simple online, but that's okay. When you get your permit, they give you a bear canister too. It's super clunky and heavy and awkward, but obviously necessary for hiking in bear country. We never saw any bears or signs of bears or anything, but we did hear about some girls who left their trash out overnight and they saw a grizzly on their campsite. So definitely make sure to use the bear canister. Some of the campsites have like a little food locker, especially the group campsites, and so you can use that too. You're not supposed to hang any bags with food in them like in the park, because bears can just still get them. We did end up hanging some bags that didn't have any food or like scented items in them to keep them away from the marmots, because marmots are like these groundhog like animals, and they just will come and like chew everything. So you either have to keep it inside of your tent or hang it in a tree where the little groundhog-sized animals can't get it. On our first night, we had like our shoes and our trekking poles outside, and about an hour after falling asleep, I was woken up to like this little sound of chewing, and I was like, oh no. So they'd gotten my trekking poles, but no other issues with animals there, so that was good. We did have bear spray with us the whole time just in case, and everyone else we passed did too. So definitely smart to bring it just in case. So in terms of planning your route, a couple things you want to think about are how many days you have, and then the elevation changes that you're going to have each of those days. We started at Marion Lake. We technically started at the end of the gondola at Teton Village, which then took Rendezvous Trail to a trail to Marion Lake, and then we went north from there and ended at String Lake / Lee Lake. So that was about 40 miles. My phone died, so not really sure, but about that. And it took us 4 days, 3 nights. It took us about 73 hours total. So 2 half days and 2 full days. But, so you want to think about like how fast you're going to be hiking. We went at a comfortable pace. We stopped for lunch. We stopped for snack breaks in the morning and in the afternoon. And it was a comfortable pace for us. We didn't feel rushed. We had permits for 4 nights, and we ended up only staying 3. So we got a little bit ahead of our schedule. So when you're planning, you want to think about the big elevation changes that you're going to hit. There's 2 of them that are super steep up and then super steep down. Just 2 big passes to be aware of: Hurricane Pass and Paintbrush Divide. Hurricane Pass is right before South Fork Cascade Canyon, one of those camping zones. It's a trek up, but it's absolutely beautiful when you get to the top. 10,000% worth it. And then the second one is right before Holly Lake. Again, I'm saying before if you're going south to north. And that, I mean, again, they're just like so beautiful at the top, but it's a hike to get up there. Very steep on the way up, and also very, very steep on the way down, especially after Paintbrush Divide. Going down was almost scarier than going up, especially because there were some patches of snow and like little glaciers that hadn't melted yet. So some things just to note on the trail if you're curious about crowds: there really weren't a lot of people except around the lakes. So around the lakes towards the north, there were a lot of day hikers who would come up the canyons to, spend a day at the lake. Honestly, kudos to them. That's a hard day hike. Going up and down those passes twice in one day, I would not want to do it. But around the lakes, there's a good amount of people. I'd say like 20, 25 we saw. But then in like Alaska Basin and Death Canyon Shelf, like all of those like just kind of flatter stretches without any like points of interest or lakes or day hikes or anything, we would come across maybe like 1 or 2 people or groups per afternoon. So not too many people on the actual trail. If you are planning to bring an Eno or hammock camp, don't. There are very few trees in large stretches. There's like, in some of the canyons, once you get kind of down in elevation, there's definitely trees, but I would not bank on sleeping in a hammock. And when you're like thinking about going to the bathroom, if you see some trees, take them, because there might not be another little group of trees for a while. That's something that I didn't really expect. And then another thing I didn't expect is because there were no trees, you were on kind of like ridgeline and just exposed meadows a lot, so I got so sunburned. Bring sunscreen, bring a long sleeve shirt, pants, like whatever you need to do to avoid that. So one point that I do want to add is if you're taking the gondola or the aerial tram up from Teton Village to start your trek to Marion Lake, we had the hardest time finding the trail. And we even thankfully had service at the top so we could kind of Google it. But if you're taking the gondola, it only goes about 2/3 of the way up. So you will take the Rendezvous Mountain Cirque Trail up to the top of Rendezvous Mountain. There's a little waffle place or something up there. It wasn't open when we were there. But once you're at the top, you're like, okay, it ended. Where do we go? There's a service road. I'm not sure which direction it is, but it's down the mountain. So there's a service road that goes down. There's a couple of them. They all lead to the same place. And then there's some signs about ski runs and that kind of thing. And there's this little trailhead, and it does not say like Trail to Marion Lake or whatever trailhead you're looking for, but just take it. I forget exactly what it's called, but in like less than half a mile you'll see a trail to the right that does say Marion Lake and Granite Canyon and like all of those other things. So it's a little bit hard to find. We went up and down Rendezvous Mountains so many times before we even started. It was miserable, but once we found it we were fine, and the rest of the time it really was not hard to stay on the trail. Alright, so getting to the trailhead to start your hike. There's a couple options here. What we did, we started at Teton Village, so we actually parked our car there, and then before we left we had called and scheduled a ride back to our car with Teton Mountain Taxi. Their website is jacksonholecab.com. It was about $90 for 2 people to get from the Lee Lake String Lake Trailhead back to our car at Teton Village. That's an option. We ended up meeting some people on the trail and split it with them. We also ended up being a day early, and so we were able to find some service at the trailhead, call them, and they were super flexible, and they let us just change our reservation to that day, and they came in about an hour and a half, which honestly was fine because we wanted to like relax by the lakes and stuff. The way that I would have done it is probably parking your car at wherever you're going to end, and then having the taxi come pick you up and bring you to where you're going to start. So then whenever you're done, you can just get in your car and go. The only issue with that is like if you bail early for any reason, you would have to figure out how to get back to your car still. So it's an option. Hitchhiking is also an option. It's just like we went during COVID, and so we weren't sure how people were going to feel about that. So we like went ahead and scheduled this taxi service and ended up being able to split it with another group, so that was good. But apparently I've been seeing online that it's super easy in normal conditions to get a ride if you're hitchhiking. I'm just not sure right now with COVID how people feel about that, but definitely worth a try. Alright, I hope that was at least somewhat helpful, and I can't wait to see your adventures.